I have something to admit. I've been on a Batman kick recently. Whether it's buying and reading comics, making action figures, or putting more cowls together, I just can't stop. And I don't intend to. We're gonna be talking about the cowls specifically today because I've gone on quite a journey. A journey my family has become acutely aware of because I have spent many an evening sewing. Just watching TV, sitting there, sewing, trying to figure out a pattern. I made so many cowls. It's probably not gonna seem like I actually made that many cowls because some of them I repurposed or just scrapped entirely. But let's start from the beginning. This technically started back in the day when I made this one out of cardboard, but I've already kind of covered that in my semi-recent missions to make stuff video. The product of that video was this cowl, which I was pretty satisfied with. I do really like how it goes on and off. Something about buttoning it up on the side here is very satisfying. If I can find the button, there we go. The problem is though, it's not all that comfortable to wear. Both because of the neck and because EVA foam, which is what I've been using, does not breathe nor absorb sweat. So when I was filming with this thing, I had to have a Kleenex nearby to wipe my cheeks off because my eye makeup was running down my face almost into my mouth because of how much I was sweating. And that may just be a problem with me because I sweat from my scalp and my forehead more than I think any other place on my body. I know it may be weird to talk about sweat. I'm not gonna talk about sweat this entire video, I promise. But yeah, that kind of started my quest to actually make a cowl that is comfortable to wear. Plus with this one, I had some minor critiques. Like I think it looks pretty good if you just kind of have a picture of it, but then when I'm wearing it, the ears look really small and kind of like pointed inwards because when it's in my head, it bulges outwards, which makes the ears just kind of look, I don't know. I usually like slightly more prominent ears on a bat cowl, as I've discovered. And then the eyes don't quite fit the shape of my face. I mean, it's supposed to look like Batman, it's not really supposed to look like me, but it still has to fit my face and be comfortable to wear. I'm gonna button up my shirt and flip my collar up to try and give the illusion of neck armor. In that video, I also revealed that I had made an Adam West inspired cowl. And yeah, and this kind of aesthetic in general is really growing on me as the years go on. Like, I like Adam West. It's not ironic anymore. I used to watch that show to make fun of it. Now it's just so genuine. As a random side note about the ears, I think if you're gonna have more stubby ears, having them kind of like on the sides of the head sticking straight up like this works a little better than if it's on the top of the head. Like I tried to put mine on the top of the head and so then they just kind of stuck up like that instead of being like this, but that's kind of a random side. I will have a video talking about how I made an entire Adam West inspired costume. So subscribe and leave a like. It's only polite. Yeah, and after I had all my sweaty issues, I went back and lined this with some fabric, and that also made it just more comfortable to wear. Like it's a little snugger now, but it's not tight. So with my quest to make my own more perfected cowl, I decided I really need to get into the mindset. I needed to absorb the essence of what a cowl should be. So I decided to start from the beginning. Because supposedly, Batman's cowl is supposed to be some kind of cloth. Because every now and then, in the comics or in cartoons, he'll flip it off his head and it'll just be like a hood, which I guess is why it can get away with being called a cowl, because a cowl is technically a hood, but most of the time it's depicted as a helmet, and I think that makes more sense practically anyway, unless your Batman is just going for the costumed look, in which case it doesn't need to be a helmet, it can just be cloth. And that's what I was trying to figure out. I wanted that cloth look. So when I was just experimenting with the pattern, I ended up with this. This wasn't really intended to be a Batman cowl. This was just trying to find something that matched my head. And I don't know, I kind of like the look of this. Like, I almost want to make my own like superhero parody just based around like the idea of having this brown sort of cowl. When I was figuring out the pattern for the Adam West cowl, but I hadn't reinforced it with foam yet, I sent a picture of it to my brother and I said, like, I feel like I'm a sad wannabe slasher villain or something. And then he said, what did he say? He called me the hooded goober. I forget how he got there exactly, but now I feel like that needs to be this wannabe vigilante character. Like, I'm the hooded goober. Fear me. It does technically fold back, like I was speaking of, but every time I do that, the fabric stretches a little more. And now it doesn't quite fit as well. I mean, it still fits. It was very formed onto my face originally, and then from taking it on and off, now it's a little loose. And yeah, from there, I moved on to actual cowls, and this is the only surviving one of the cloth family. Yeah, this one, I still want to figure this out. I want to make more of an actual cloth, like, hood cowl. Because let's see, does this one go back? This one does technically fold back. But it's a little more of a squeeze, and it doesn't quite fit like around my face very flatteringly. Like, it doesn't look like a good Batman shaped face. It just yeah, you know, it looks like a cheap costume. Why I was doing so much sewing is because, like, not only did I have to figure out the pattern for all of these, but I also doubled them up because I want it to be cloth, but I want it to be like thick cloth. So I was doubling up every fabric piece that I was stitching together, and I was stitching it all by hand. So it was like, find the pattern, get all the pieces lined up, stitch the individual panels together, then stitch those panels to be the shape of a cowl. And I did that like 4 or 5 times to test out the different patterns. And like I said, some of them I kind of harvested or repurposed. Because at one point I was really tired of figuring out the neck. The neck is the hardest thing with all these Batman. So then I decided maybe I should just make neck armor pieces. So like I do have some neck armor pieces that I haven't really figured out how they connect to the cowl. I think if I was gonna have a more official version, I'd want the neck piece and the cowl to like really match, but these are good practice pieces. This one in particular I'll probably go ahead and put on, because this is like an undercowl. It's not really supposed to be like a neck guard, because this was originally going to be like an actual cowl, but didn't get that far. This undercowl is meant to go with this helmet piece, I guess. And this one was actually kind of inspired by Daredevil. I don't know if that's weird to mix my superheroes or not, but you know, like, I like the look of his like improvised outfit. Because sometimes I like Batman to have like the scowl, the like angry look in his face. Or sometimes I like it like if he looks kind of gargoyle-like. But I also kind of like the impassive features, and that's what I think the Daredevil look really has. Because like you can't even see his eyes in that version. I have the eyes here so that it definitely looks like Batman. But that's kind of what I wanted, just the idea of like fabric just wrapped around the face. But yeah, I do kind of like the look of this one. This was the first one that I made where I was like, that looks good, it feels good, I think it works. But yeah, this one, I started out with like a sewn together pattern, and then I just glued fabric on top of that. So like it's mostly fabric. I think there's some foam like reinforcing the nose or maybe the brow and the ears, of course. But it's mostly fabric still, just fabric glued on in very thick pads so that it feels pretty dense. It feels pretty, ow. Obviously not that tough, but yeah. Despite being as thick as it is still somewhat flexible and loose. And hopefully because it's mostly made out of cloth, it will absorb my bodily juices. Next. Okay, so I have a plan. Well, I don't know if a plan. A desire. I have a desire for like a more old-timey Batman, I guess. I mean, I'm constantly coming up with ideas of like,
oh, what would I do if I wanted to make a Batman movie?
I can't decide because it's never gonna happen. It's just a dream. I can come up with however many alternate universes I want to. But one of them is like, sometimes I'll see like concept art, fan art, or early drawings, or I don't know where they come from really, but I've seen like Batman pictures of trying to like make him actually look like he's from the historical period in which he was created. And so this is kind of what that was inspired from. This is entirely made out of foam, but it's supposed to look like leather, and I think I did a bang-up job, if I do say so myself. This looks a lot like leather, and it's surprisingly stiff too, like almost a little too stiff. I actually think if I did this for real, like, I think I'd want to use actual leather because leather might actually be softer. I don't know. I've never actually worked with leather that much. That's why I made it out of foam. But yeah, it's supposed to kind of look like the Leatherheads era of like football, sort of. The main kind of question, like I like the leather look, but as for like an actual Batman cowl, should Batman's cowl be brown? Sometimes, like, again, if I look at art or if I draw my own Batmans or make them, sometimes I like to lean towards a slightly browner color palette. Like, I think it makes sense, especially if you're doing like the historical Batman kind of. I don't know if Batman's ever really been brown before, but I think that would work as sort of like my mark if I was to have a Batman cowl. But even if this rest of his suit was brown, I feel like the cowl should still be black. But I have this weird conflict in my head now of like, if I were to translate this cowl specifically to a more cinematic vision, should it be brown, black, or blue? I don't know. In short, I intend to find out. If I'm gonna make more cowls, one of them is definitely gonna be like an actual leather one. I just need to figure out how to work with leather. Can you sew leather? It probably depends on how thick it is. I don't know, like I assume there's special tricks to sew leather. This one is glued together, but I did sew it just to kind of give it the seam look, but the stitches aren't actually holding anything together. If they were, the foam would just tear because that's what foam does. The glue is often stronger than the foam itself. This one worked out. It's like what I was saying before, where sometimes you need like the sculpted scowl look, and then sometimes you need a more kind of vague scowl look. And I feel like this is kind of what you get, where the pieces around the face that reinforce the brow don't look like an angry face, but they give that impression of kind of furrowing your brow a little bit. But I think it works. Oh yeah, and the nose piece, of course, was also inspired by the Batman, which was in and of itself inspired by Adam West. It is funny to say that, but it's true. In the behind the scenes, I think they said that they have the square nose piece because it kind of looks like the Adam West cowl. It also implies that like he's been punched in the face and wanted extra support around his nose, which tells a story, which is cool. Next up, this is in many ways both the best and the worst. It's probably the most experimental one, and I think I mentioned at one point that I kind of want Batman to look like a gargoyle sometimes. This is what I was going with. It's Gargoyle Batman. It looks good for what it is, but the more I think about it, the more like I went very crazy with the lines and the scowl. Like this is very, very goblin-y, but it looks pretty good if I have like, where'd the neck piece go? It looks pretty good when it's all put together. And right now I'm not wearing any eye makeup, but after this I'm gonna take pictures where I'm probably gonna put eye makeup and you'll be able to see it in a little fuller glory there. This one, I really wanted to obscure as much of my face as I could. But I worry that the problem with having this much of a scowl in your Batman cowl is that the cowl itself will start to seem like the Christian Bale bat voice, and how people make fun of that for kind of seeming like he's trying a little too hard to be scary. I mean, just look at it. I'm a gargoyle. It is still a little weird when I move my head and you can see the neck piece like kind of sticking up, but I think that's functionally better than having to do the Keaton thing. Maybe Keaton isn't just trying to look around. Maybe he's just trying to pop his back. This one was made kind of similarly to what I was saying about like the Daredevil inspired one, where it started with cloth and then I just kept gluing stuff on. But I glued a lot more foam onto this one because I wanted to cover it in clay. And clay is really what made this thing come all together. I sculpted this thing very meticulously, and despite being a little exaggerated, I still think this is the most legit one. Just wearing this thing feels like I'm wearing a helmet. Like it is solid. The clay really solidifies once you give it time to dry completely. This feels thick, like this feels hard, and it fits my face very well. This is probably the most form-fitting one, especially like around the eyes. Like I can feel it kind of around my brow and my eye sockets, but it's not restricted, it's not poking anything. I can express, I can close my eyes, I can open them, like it looks good. And the shape of the ears too, like again, it's exaggerated for the gargoyle effect, but I really like this look. I think this is the first time that I figured out how to make the ears look, because every other time, like I said, when the cowl is stretched around my head, the ears kind of bend inwards and are almost triangular. This is so solid and the ears stick out so far, like this is the shape that I was going for. Just the silhouette of this is right, for me anyway. So if I do make a more official cowl, this is probably what I would go with. I just dial it back and make the face look more like the Arkham games, where it's like it has the scowl, but it's not ridiculous. But I'd use these methods. I'd use the clay and everything, because this just worked. I wore this for a long time once I got it all put together, because like I put it on and then I wanted to see what it looked like with the eye makeup, and then I went ahead and like put on the neck piece and this black shirt and draped a blanket over my shoulders, and then was just going around the house like. It's fun to wear, and it's still lined with fabric, so it's still more comfortable. I haven't worked up a sweat in this one to see how well the fabric really, absorbs, but at least it's not raw EVA foam, because that stuff is a little unpleasant. I mean, it's not terrible. I don't know how people get through it. This is like cosplayers' bread and butter, this EVA foam stuff. So I assume people have worn helmets of it for extended periods of time. Are there any tricks to not just have your face completely dripping in sweat? the entire time. Maybe people don't make that many like really form-fitting masks that often. Maybe like if you're wearing a helmet, you can make it big enough that you can get kind of some airflow and like just have pads of foam cushioning it. I don't know. There needs to be some way of stopping yourself from sweating, right? Last but not least, we have this one. And this one, I haven't decided what I think of it. It was inspired by one of the figures I made. I was trying to think like, how would you make the blue and gray really work? And what I went with was like some kind of more noir driven look almost. Like, I don't know if noir is exactly the right word. In my head, the story that I have related to that suit is like a very particular style. So I think in that situation, the blue and gray could work. You can't just rush into it with the blue and gray. Like even this, it's blue, but like I think having the black elements is important. It just doesn't look quite as good in the big thing. Like I think you can tell this feels like a toy action figure cowl, kind of scaled up. It doesn't look like as much of a legit cowl, but I'll put it on and you can see for yourself. And this one, I actually almost had the hardest time trying to like fit this one to my head. Did I forget to put a chin strap? Most of these I've been putting chin straps on them. I might have forgotten with this one. I don't know if it needs it or not. What was I saying? I wanted the cowl itself to have a shape, and so that it ended up not quite fitting me as well. So I actually have foam padded up inside of it to kind of keep it up on my face a little bit, because before I put the foam pads in there, it's like squishy foam, it's not EVA foam. It was sinking so far down onto my face that I thought it made my chin look really dorky, like I was a kid wearing Batman's cowl, because I don't have like a big jawline to really pull it off. I'm blanking on what I did to make this one, but I have footage, so I'll just play the footage. I am Batman. Doot, 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 doot. Yeah. So that, let's see, how many cowls is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 7 cowls with another handful that never really made it to the light of day. Okay, those are the cowls I made. Each one's trying a slightly different style. Which one do you like best? It's hard for me to pick because they each have different pros and cons. I still do really like the leather one. I want to keep working with that, to keep trying to perfect that one, because I feel like that's what I'm going for. Like in my own imagining of wanting to make a Batman movie, like that's the aesthetic that I want. So I want to figure that one out. I also am disappointed in the blue one a little bit, just a little bit. Kind of want to figure that one out too. But I'm definitely gonna make just a full-blown like clay version, like the Gargoyle, but not as gargoyle-y. Because again, Gargoyle boy, this is the cowl, this is the helmet. This feels really good. It's hard to describe what it's like to wear this thing. This is the one where you wear it, you feel like you're Batman. So I definitely want to make another one like this as well. Hope you enjoyed this as much as I have, because I've been a little bit obsessed. Actually, I've been able to take a few months off of making cowls because I've been focusing on other things. But there was a good few months there where just all I was doing was just pumping out cowls every week. Yeah, thank you for watching, and have a nice day.